We are now in Lecture 1, Part 4 of David Ingram's Law. In this part, we're going to discuss a new concept, rule of law. We're also going to look at criticism of positivism, and we're going to start thinking about what it might mean to talk about morality in the law. And for all of these purposes, we're going to also examine briefly the claims of a philosopher, Hobbes. Ingram does two things of note in his discussion of positivism. One, he uses it to introduce and discuss the notion of the rule of law. Two, he levels a criticism at positivism that it and its central notion of the rule of law are at best necessary, but not sufficient to explain why we are obligated to follow the law. Ingram seems to argue that we have a moral sense due to which we follow the law. To the extent that moral justice is contained and reflected in the law. Ingram claims that we do not follow the law due to our commitment to stability only, in an instrumental sense. Whether that commitment is conscious and intentional in us, or is internalized with custom and is habitual. The interesting thing that Ingram does at this point is that he uses the natural law theory and the legal positivism's notion of the rule of law to unearth or excavate for us what moral justice and morality are by examining the natural law theory and rule of law more closely. Ingram also examines one instance of significance change in law, the Supreme Court on the 14th Amendment, and how it has been theorized, this change in law. And in doing so, supports his claim about what moral justice is, as well as its important presence in what law is. The rule of law means that there are established rules by which laws are legislated, administered, and adjudicated. That these are not simply up to the whims of rulers, the government, some select group of citizens, or any other usurper. For simplicity's sake, let us conceive of the rule of law in terms of the version that is most familiar to all of us. There's the Constitution and the constitutional law, according to which the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of our government are established, elected, appointed, and according to which they proceed to make and enforce statutory laws that the judicial branch then judges to be in accord with or not with regard to the Constitution. The Constitution is the backbone of the rule of law here. It establishes the rule of law, and it is the rule of law as the source of the rule of law. And we can contrast this constitutional process to its exact opposite, a situation in which whoever happens to be in power simply exercises their will as they see appropriate. The positivists would claim that the rule of law is needed in order to make sure that society is peaceful, orderly, and stable. They would claim that without rule of law, society is disorderly, unpredictable, anarchic, and is basically unlivable. And they would claim that justice is just the achievement of this stability by means of law and rule of law. The important thinker who helps us make sense of the rule of law and the positivist take on it is Hobbes. Hobbes argued that human beings are simply desiring beings that go about the satisfaction of their desires, in the process of which they run into conflict with each other. Soon enough, human beings realize that more of their desires would be satisfied if they acted according to laws that prevent and resolve their conflicts. So, human beings form and desire to be in society according to laws with each other, and such a society has laws. Additionally, according to Hobbes, such a society of laws must be and is best governed by a sovereign who is above these laws and makes the laws and adjudicates the application of and change in these laws. A sovereign who is above the law, a kind of a dictator, but the sovereign is needed in order to resolve most efficiently the disagreements and stalemates about laws and their adjudication. Hobbes clearly makes visible the need for rule of law, in which no one is above the law, according to which the citizens would have certain rights to prevent the sovereigns doing harm to them, whether due to the sovereigns seeking to take advantage of them or due to the sovereign's errors. Right? So Hobbes makes clear that what we want is rule of law, in which no one is above it. Even though what he explicitly says is that a sovereign is needed who is above the law in order to make the law and not be trapped by stalemates of unending disputes and discussions that otherwise would be in the making of the laws.